Hey guys, it's Michelle from Cozyegg, and today is Wednesday, September 30th, 2020, and this is episode 96. I know I should look at that before I start, but I never do. So, if you are a returning viewer, thank you so much for coming back, and if you are new here, this is primarily a channel about cross stitch, although I tend to throw in other crafty things like knitting, quilting, as well as reading and general life stuff. So I'm glad you're here. So what's been going on? Let me just say, I recorded this on Monday, and it was a hot mess. So I decided yesterday I should probably just re-record this tomorrow. So that's what I'm doing. Of course, today when I woke up, my Fitbit told me that I only had 3 hours of sleep and I had a migraine. So this could very well end up being a hot mess as well. If you're seeing this one, you'll know that it was less of a hot mess than Monday. If you're not seeing this one, you won't know anything is different. So let's see. Sampler September is coming to a close. Today is the last day. Everyone that has been participating in Sampler September or September Sampler Soiree and sharing their progress photos, their new starts, their finishes, just follow those two hashtags on Instagram and get your credit card out and get ready to kit some stuff up. So, but it has, as per usual, been so fun to watch, everyone's progress on things and see some new starts, etc. I love seeing sampler whips. I can't get enough of it. And of course, we are getting ready to go into Dark October starting tomorrow. So I will talk a little bit more about that here in a little bit, but let's get into it, shall we? And I think I'm just going to kind of break things up and we'll talk about September stuff and then we'll start talking about October stuff. And we'll just throw in, haul and whips and new starts and what have you in that manner. We'll see if maybe that makes me a little bit more coherent. I can't promise anything. And if I start to kind of squint, it's because migraine. All right, so for September, I basically had a monogamous September, and I started the Women of the Mayflower piece on September 6th. So that is, so September 6th was the day that the Mayflower set sail 400 years ago. And so that's the date that I determined I wanted to start this with the intention that I would stitch it in that 66 days that their journey took, finishing up by November 9th. Of course, I decided all of this before, Brenda Gervais had talked about her SAL and her piece, and of course that's what most everyone is stitching, but I have had this piece on my radar for at least probably 14 years. So I figured it's time. And if I'm ever going to stitch a Mayflower piece, this is the year to do it. So This is Women of the Mayflower, and it appeared in Fine Lines magazine. This was spring of 2004. And, you know, I just absolutely fell in love with this. I remember back probably around 2006-ish time frame, Carol, who had a, I don't know if she still is blogging, but had a blog called Garden of Stitches. And Carol was one of the first stitching blogs that I ever read. Loved her blog, and she started this piece, and I immediately, you know, hit the internet looking for this chart, or looking for the magazine. I was able to order it from Traditional Stitches, which is up in Canada. And then, you know, as excited as I was to jump on it, here we are like 14 years later, and I still haven't stitched it. So I figured it was time. So this is stitched in old Willow Stitchery threads, because I believe the designer of this, Sarah Ullman, her company was Old Willow Stitchery. So that's what it calls for. Those threads are no longer in production. Sarah unfortunately passed away before this was even published, so she didn't get to see her piece on the cover. But basically what I did was I worked out, you know, a conversion that I could use. I wanted to do overdyes, of course, and Sylvia, Running with Needles and Scissors, has the Old Willow Stitchery threads and is using them for her piece. So if you are interested in seeing how it looks in the original threads, please go take a look at her Instagram or her Flosstube channel. So she took some photos for me of what the original threads look like and what some substitutions might be. And then I sort of took it from there. And ultimately, I just sort of looked at the picture and picked things that I thought looked good. So these are the threads that I'm using. It's kind of a mix of Weeks and Classic Colorworks and Gentle Arts. And a few people have asked me for my conversion, which I provided to them, but when I put the show notes up for this piece, or for this video, I will include my conversion in the show notes, which will be on my blog. And just for future reference, I do try to get the show notes up within a few days of publishing my video. Sometimes I'm better about that than others, but I am trying to get it up, you know, within that same week. And I try to put all of the information about all of the pieces. So if you are looking for further information or what fabric I used or anything like that, it should be listed in the show notes on my blog, and I put a link to that down in the description box. So anyway, my conversion will be listed there so that you will have it if should you want it. So this is basically what I chose. And the colors that I chose are more saturated than the original, and a little more, you know, kind of in that jewel tone range that I like. I've got a few, you know, lighter colors in here as well. So there's two exceptions here that I'll point out. So one of them is I am also using Nutmeg for that kind of orangey color. This is Nutmeg right here, but I had to steal it from another project. So that's why it's on here and it's not with this other stuff. So yeah, there's Nutmeg. And when I originally pulled my conversion, I added this after the fact. So if I have previously given you my conversion, this was not in it. And this is Weeks Williamsburg Blue. And it's got kind of a purpley tint to it. When I was looking at Instagram, Lori of Lori and Percy had started Women of the Mayflower, and she was doing the verse up at the top. And you can see that this has sort of a purplish, cast to it. For the most part, I intended to use Deep Sea for that color, but when I saw her, and that's what I've used like for the waves and for this bird and so on and so forth. But when I saw hers, where she had started up here, I really liked the thought of having the verse and the names down here be in a different color. So I pulled that Williamsburg Blue, and that's what I'm doing the verse in, and then also the women's names down below. And I have this on one of my thread rings from Becky Socks for Mom. That one just sort of looked like it was appropriate for Women of the Mayflower. So put it on there. There's little scissors, stork scissors. So without further ado, let me show you my progress. So like I said, I started this on September 6th, and this is where I'm at. And I am stitching this on 40 count Mellow by Picture This Plus. And I'm absolutely loving it. I'm enjoying stitching on this. I'm enjoying the way that my colors are coming together. Really happy with it. So you can see I've started that verse with that Williamsburg Blue. And the way that this is charted, it has cross stitch, but then it also has some specialty stitches in it. And I love specialty stitches as much as the next person. I love the texture that they give to a piece and the visual interest. But I'm having to sort of pick and choose which, what specialty stitches I do. For example, the ship was intended to be all in diagonal satin stitch. And I gave it a try, and I did not like the way that it looked. So I ripped it out and I just did the ship in straight cross stitch, and I'm very happy with the way that it turned out. The peacock's tail, on the other hand, has it's stitched with cross stitch, but then it has like two different sets of road stitches on top of it to give the eyes of the peacock's feathers a little texture and interest to them, and I really like the way that that turned out. They're almost, well, I don't think you can see it, but they're almost kind of raised, which I really like. The centers of these two flowers were supposed to be done in a brick stitch, but since I'm using 40 count, I was just doing it with one strand of thread, and I really just did not like the look of it. There's a box right here that I have not stitched yet that is all in brick stitch. I'm going to try it with 2 strands and see if I like that better. If not, then I will do something else in that box. But I didn't like the way that it looked on the flowers, and I just sort of wanted to move on and just get them stitched, so that's what I did. And then up here underneath the verse, this is all eyelet stitches. So I'm in the process of filling the background of this box in and doing eyelets and working on the verse. So I sort of do like one length of thread, one length of thread, one length of thread, and I'm just sort of going back and forth between them. And I really like the way that this motif came out. Really pretty. So I'm very much enjoying this, like I said, and I'm happy with the progress that I have made. I want to continue making progress on it, so I'm thinking that I may still continue to work on it a little bit in October. Even though it's dark October stitching, I'm considering maybe pulling it out like on the weekends to work on. We'll see what feels like it's gonna work. But my intention is to finish that piece before November 9th, and that's not gonna happen if I don't continue to work on it a little bit in October. So that's what I've been working on for Sampler September. And that's all that I've been working on for Sampler September, except that I mentioned last time I was doing some secret quilting and some secret stitching. And I finished my secret stitching, which I will show you next time after it's received. And I will show you my secret quilting at some point. So the other thing that I have been working on is the secret charting that I mentioned. And I'm hoping to have that wrapped up soon. And as soon as that is revealed elsewhere, then I will share that with you too. So that's been my September. But while we're talking samplers, I did have one little bit of stash enhancement, and that is the Hands Across the Sea Jane Jackson sampler. So the Tudor Rose Sampler Guild, this is our 20th anniversary, and so we had arranged to have Nicola Parkman of Hands Across the Sea come to do a workshop for us, and this sampler was to be part of that workshop. She was going to come and do, a lecture and talk to us about the history of Jane and, sampler stuff, all that good stuff. And we were super looking forward to it. Unfortunately, COVID. So we were supposed to have our workshop this past weekend. And needless to say, it did not happen. So Nicola did allow us to purchase the chart for Jane Jackson, and then of course we can kit it up however we want. So I received this. Nicola sent the charts out to our board, and then they shipped this out to each of us that signed up. And I absolutely love this sampler. I really do. I love that it's an Adam and Eve. I love the big roses. I love this border. I loved everything about it, honestly. But when it arrived, it was bent because my postman hates me. So since I got it in the mail, it has actually been sitting under a pile of books to try to flatten that out, because this corner is like really, and the whole thing was folded up and stuffed in my mailbox, and I just hate that. So anyway, this is of course, like most of the Hands Across the Sea, it is charted for a Verissois Soie d'Alger, or 103, or DMC. And of course, I'm stitching my Anne Uffendel with DMC. When we, of course, were planning on ordering kits for these for our workshop, I decided that I wanted to go with the 46 count linen and the 103s, because I've only used the 103s once, maybe, on a small piece. And so I thought, you know, I wanted something really special since this was kind of our anniversary sampler. So I will probably at some point kit this up. I'm a little sad that, you know, I just have the chart and not the full kit, you know, because now I'm afraid that now that I don't have it kitted up, that it's just gonna sit. So, but that is my plan, is to kit this up with the 103 and 46 count linen. And it calls for weeks parchment in 46 count. That's what the model was stitched on. So yeah, and she's 299 stitches by 280, so she's a big girl, really pretty. So that arrived, and I think that's probably it for Sampler September. So now let's talk about October. So before I get into dark October stitching, there's a couple of things I wanted to tell you about. So one is my friend Cynthia from Stitching in the Light, along with Christy from Crosshatch Quilts and Olivia from Pumpkin Hollow Quilts. They are hosting the Great Pumpkin SAL for October, and it's basically to stitch or craft pumpkins in October, and it should be, you know, super fun. And I love that she's opening up, that they're opening up to not just stitching, but to crafting. So it can be quilts, it can be, you know, wool felt, it can be, you know, whatever your heart desires. And those three ladies are extremely talented and extremely inspirational as far as, you know, the pieces that they work on and their finishing techniques, etc. So I am sure that there will be, we will not want for inspiration. So if you want to join that stitch along, the hashtag is the Great Pumpkin SAL. And I will include that in the description box as well as in the show notes. So you can follow that hashtag and get ideas, what to work on, etc., which should be fun. So anything with a pumpkin, use the hashtag. And as part of that stitch along, Cynthia also wanted to use the stitch along and use, you know, October to draw awareness to an important, something that's super important, and it's important to her personally, but also, you know, raise awareness, and then also to raise some money for an organization called Freedom Shield. And I'm not going to go into a long, lengthy ramble like I did the first time I recorded this, because I got way off track. But suffice it to say that as part of the Great Pumpkin SAL, she is also doing a raffle. So for a donation to the Freedom Shield Foundation, which is a locally based but worldwide reaching organization that deals with human trafficking. And so part of the work that they do is to rescue people out of those situations, but then also to provide them with support afterwards, you know, trauma support, etc., as well as to help get them kind of, you know, on their feet and moving forward afterwards. And they also do, they work with other organizations to provide, you know, training and support for other organizations so that they can assist with providing that support to victims of human trafficking that they have then, you know, pulled out of those situations. And so donations to Freedom Shield, and then you provide, you know, a copy of your receipt to Cynthia, and you'll get entered for the drawing. She's got all sorts of amazing prizes, including like a project bag from Christy, you know, all kinds of stuff. So charts and fabric and all kinds of stuff. So go look at the Great Pumpkin SAL hashtag, and you will see not only people that have already started stitching pumpkins and using that hashtag, but you will also see the great prizes that you can win for, you know, as part of that raffle based on your donation to Freedom Shield. So a very worthy cause, and I wanted to make sure that you guys were aware of it, so that you can stitch some pumpkins, donate some money to a good cause, get entered into a cool raffle, and maybe win some prizes. So that's the most important thing. But then there are, of course, some other SALs that are going on in October, which I'll talk about in just a minute. But let's talk a little bit about dark October stitching. So if you are new, if you are not familiar with it, Dark October Stitching is hosted by myself and Emily C. of Eclectic Possessions. She also just recently uploaded a video, and she talked about Dark October there also. So Dark October we've been hosting for several years, and it is basically a stitch along for the whole month of October. And it's really because the two of us are, of course, not just interested in, you know, Halloween stitching, but we are also interested in dark, creepy, spooky, macabre. I also throw in there like Victorian Gothic, you know, that sort of vibe. Emily's, you know, more on the horror movie vibe. I'm more on the Victorian Gothic romantic kind of vibe. But really anything goes. Whatever you think would fit in the category of dark October stitching, have at it. And I will show you my Dark October plans here momentarily. So that's what Dark October stitching is. You can feel free to interpret that how you will, but the intention, of course, was not to just be Halloween specific, but it can also be, you know, tombstones or, you know, what have you. So we also do dark 13 stitching, because if you don't want to wait until October to do some dark stitching, you have the opportunity every single month on the 13th of the month to do dark stitching. So the 13th of every month, I try to post a reminder on Instagram, but we do dark 13 stitching. So it's a perfect opportunity to pull out those spooky whips to start a new project and use the hashtag dark 13 stitching. And of course, go follow those two hashtags because, yeah, amazing. Every time I look at those beads, it just makes me happy. So dark October stitching for the month of October, and then dark 13 stitching every month on the 13th of the month. And of course, in October, when it's already dark October and we hit the 13th of the month, that's like a double whammy. That's when you get your really dark stuff out. And of course, tomorrow being October 1st is also a full moon, so perfect opportunity to get out your spooky stitching and, you know, put on some black eyeliner, put on a creepy movie, and just enjoy. So one other SAL that I wanted to talk about that is also going, well, I'll talk about that in a minute when I get to what I'm going to work on. So we'll just hold that for a minute. So anyway, so that's dark October stitching. But if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. But pretty much you can interpret that how you will. So let's talk about what I'm going to work on for dark October stitching. It is my favorite month of the year. Dark stitching is my favorite kind of stitching next to samplers. It makes my little gothic heart just pitter patter. So tomorrow starts another SAL, which is going to be hosted by Becky Socks for Mom and Christine Hollis Hands Create, who is also McMama Hollis on Instagram, but Hollis Hands Create is her Etsy shop name as well as her YouTube name, her Flosstube name. So the two of them have birthdays in October, and they wanted to do a birthday SAL, and so they have decided to start a piece that is in the Blackbird Designs book that is called Sisters, and this is a black and white copy, but so this piece is called At First Cock's Crow, and it's a beautiful piece. I will insert a photo here. So that you can see it in all of its glorious color, fall colors. So they are starting this for their birthday SAL tomorrow, October 1st, and they are using the hashtag OCT, O-C-T for October, OCT Sisters B-Day SAL. So look for that if you have this as a whip, if you want to start it, if you just want to follow the hashtag and be enabled, please do. So this is one of those that has been on my radar for a while. So when they decided that they were going to do that as their birthday stitch along, I was like, I love it. It's not that big. I think I want to stitch it. So, and this is going to live in my brand new, perfect for dark October stitching bag that was made by a friend of mine and given to me for my birthday. So, I was also given a gift certificate to 123 Stitch for my birthday. And so I decided to purchase the fabric and the one thread that I needed so that I could start this. So I'm going to be stitching it on 40 count Weeks Cocoa. It actually calls for 18th century brown. '18th century brown by R&R, 30 count, nope. And the design size is 133 by 155, so it's not huge. I mean, it's 8 by 10 on 30 count, so it won't be that big. So I purchased my fabric, and I had all of the threads except for pumpkin pie, and these are all Gentle Arts, and they're gorgeous, 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 gorgeous. So perfect fall color palette. I love it. That one's hiding back there. So probably should have ordered some more fragrant cloves while I was at it, but who knew? I had to steal several of these out of Sparrow. I had to steal one of them out of Jenny Bean Christmas, and one of them out of Game of Swans. Whatever. This is what I spend my time doing, is stealing threads out of other projects. So I have all of the threads that I need. I have my fabric, I have my chart, I have a pretty project bag, and I have a needle minder that will be fantastic. And also I received from Socks for Mom, Becky, these two thread keeps that are from Autumn on Lazy Bear Mountain, which is also a whip of mine. It's not really a whip, it's sort of a barely started whip, but we'll call it a whip. But I just absolutely love these. I love the house, I love the owl and the moon. So one of these will be on my threads for First Cock's Crow, which I'm super excited about. Super excited about. So the plan is to start this tomorrow for the Oct Sisters B-Day SAL. And I am planning on probably working on this maybe a week. So previously when I have done Dark October, I have tended to use it as my own form of Stitch Mania. And I, have done where I, start a new project every couple of days. I have done it where I have, only worked on whips, but I've switched them out every few days. I have done it, where I just worked on 4 pieces, like one each week. I've had, new starts just on Halloween. I've done all sorts of things. So I also have, if you're interested, I have a playlist on my channel that is just my Dark October stitching videos. I typically do weekly vlogs for Dark October stitching. I'm probably not going to do that this year. I'm probably just going to record like I normally record. But in the past, I have done, you know, daily vlogs, which I then rolled up into a weekly video. So there's, I think, some good content there. So definitely, if you're in the mood for some Dark October stitching inspiration, go check out that playlist. You can also take a look at Olivia B. She had an amazing Dark October stitching video from last year, and she basically started a brand new project every single day for Dark October stitching, which was amazing, and she vlogged the whole thing. So super fun. Go check that out. And so that's what I'm going to start tomorrow. And like I said, I think I'm probably going to work on that maybe about a week. And then I'm going to show you my other projects that I pulled that I will probably work on. I don't really want to start new things, even though I'm starting something new tomorrow. I'm really kind of wanting to make progress on some of my whips that haven't seen the light of day in a while. And in Emily's video that she just posted, she was showing a piece that she's going to work on during Dark October that she said is probably going to be her Dark 13 stitching focus piece for 2021. And just every month on the 13th, that's the piece she's going to pull out. And I think I'm going to do something similar. I'd already been kind of leaning that direction. So the piece that I was leaning that direction with, this is in my Sugar Skull Mama Joan bag. And it is Blacked Sky by the Primitive Needle. I love this piece so much. And this will, I'm thinking this is going to be my Dark 13 stitching focus piece because I really want to get this finished because I love it so much and I want it on my wall. So I am stitching this with the called for Pure Palette Silks. Pure Palette Silks that have super fun names like Cauldron and Evil and Spanish Coffee, August Moon, Saffron, just fantastic names, Swamp Thing. There are 2 silken colors in here, and then oh, it's not Evil, I think it's Envy. Envy is this green. There's 2 silken colors here, and then I also switched out one of these pure palettes for an Avera Soie d'Alger, which I talked about in one of my previous videos. And I'm stitching this on the called for fabric, which is 40 count vintage pear by Lakeside. And here is my progress. So I have the top 2 blocks complete. I've got about half of that top border complete, and then I have this 3rd block complete. And this color for the letters is the one that I switched out to the Avera Soie because my pure palette silk, when you untwisted it to pull out like one thread, it almost looked like it didn't completely take the dye. Like when it's twisted up, it looks fine, but when you pull it out, it's almost like it didn't fully absorb the dye. And so I was getting undyed parts as I was stitching. And for solid stitching, not as big of a deal. My black is actually the same way. So you can kind of see how it really, sort of fades out in some places, which if you're doing a bunch of fill-in, not that big a deal, but on these letters, it was really making it hard to see. So I just switched out. But I love this so much, and I really want to get moving on it. So I'm going to be starting this block, and then I've got 2 more blocks to go. So I'm definitely working on this the whole month, or not the whole month, at least for a week. I did consider just doing a monogamous dark October and just stitching on this to see how far I got, but then I wanted to start the first corkscrew. So Black and Sky will probably get a week, and then there's this one. This is in my Tula Pink laminate bag. This is from her Birds and the Bees line. And that color is cinnamon, so I call it my cinnamon trees bag. And this one has been whispering to me. Whispering to me. Village of Hawk Run Hollow. So I started this a few years ago. I've worked on it a little bit here and there. I started it on 36 count because I had a piece of 36 count Lakeside linen in my stash. And you don't waste Lakeside. So I started it with DMC, knowing full well that I don't like 36 count. But I really wanted to start this. I really didn't want to waste a piece of Lakeside. Yeah. So here's where I'm at. So I started and stitched this first block. Okay, fine. And then I started the second block. Okay. But that's where I start to see the coverage where I'm not happy. You know, some DMC is okay, but you know, those darker colors, I don't love the coverage. And every time I get this out or I think about this piece, I go back and forth on whether I can live with it or not, because I'm doing 1 strand over 2. Sometimes I convince myself I'm okay with it, other times I don't. And I have other pieces that I did 1 strand over 2 on 36 count that every time I look at them, I'm like, I should really restitch that. So anyway, so I stitched those 2, or I stitched this block, started that block, and then I got a bee in my bonnet and decided for dark October 1 year, I wanted to stitch the bottom block, which is the cemetery block. So this is where the crazy comes in. So I counted down counted down, and started the cemetery block. And this block, this is the one that really is what gives me pause, because this block is completely filled in. All that background is filled in with black. So, here's my thought. Emily stitched hers on 36 count, 2/2, and it's gorgeous. And she typically stitches 2/2 on 36 count. That's what she loves. You know, my sweet spot is 40 count, 1/2. But I don't have 40 count, I have 36 count. And it's lakeside, so just tossing it aside and starting over kind of sticks in my throat. So here's what I'm gonna do. My plan, I don't know if I'm gonna completely stitch on this, but my plan is to get this out, do some test stitching, 2/2, see what I think, and make a decision about, do I rip this out and restart 2/2? Do I keep going 1/2? Do I just call it a wash and buy a new piece of 40 count, even though I can't get lakeside, and start over? So my plan is, at the very least, to make a decision about what I'm going to do with this piece. I'd love to be able to make a decision and stitch on it, stitch more on this block, but I'm just gonna kind of see how it goes. So that's my plan for that. That's my plan for that. So, oh no, things are falling. My precariously stacked stuff. Okay. The other SAL that I want to talk to you about, that is taking place starting tomorrow, is a SAL that is hosted by Julie from Kansas City Girl and Colorado World and Diana, It Is Kismet Stitches. And they are going to be stitching on, starting Dracula's Confession, which is the new piece by Lindy Stitches. I will insert a photo here. And that SAL is hashtag Shade and Shadow SAL. And so they are going to be starting that piece tomorrow. And when I first saw it, I was like, yes, I am 1000% in. Because of course, Dracula. Did I ever tell you that when Eric and I started dating, on our third date, he arrived at my door to pick me up, and he bought me and brought to me a old vintage edition of Bram Stoker's Dracula. Yeah, I was like, I think I'm going to marry you. So, he knew the way to my dark little heart. vampire books. So when I saw that piece, I was like, yes, 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 please. But then my overthinking got the best of me, and I was like, I don't know if I want to do the vertical version or the horizontal version. Do I want to do it on murky? Do I want to do it, because the horizontal one is on Anubis by Under the Sea Fabrics, and Anubis Egyptian, yes please. I would of course probably do it on 40 count, but I just got kind of all wrapped around the axle of I don't know what I want to do, and I did know what I wanted to do on First Cock's Crow, so, and then I was like, yeah, I don't want to have two starts, so I'm gonna hold off on Dracula's Confession for now and think about it. But that is starting tomorrow, and I didn't want to be left out of the Dracula love, so I have my own Dracula piece I'm going to work on, and that is in this bag, which was made by Carissa, and I just love it. She also made me matching grime guards. And so this piece I started a few years ago on Halloween. I probably should have searched this fabric, because it is our tradition. Well, it's my tradition. Eric adopted it because he didn't have a choice. That on Halloween, typically we watch Bram Stoker's Dracula, and every so often I decide we're gonna watch something different. Like I think last year we watched Sleepy Hollow, Johnny Depp, that one. But typically we watch Bram Stoker's Dracula. So what would be better to start on Halloween but a Dracula piece? And so this is the Dracula book cover by Damn Good Crafts, and this was a freebie at one time. I don't know if this is still available, but it is a freebie. So I am stitching this on 40 count Gondar linen in this sort of blood red color, which I adore. This was probably intended to be for Christmas stitching, but you know how I am. So, yeah. So I'm stitching this with DMC. Of course, it is primarily all in black, but then the moon and the word Dracula are in white and yellow respectively. That big moon, I may do that in an overdye. We'll see. But just to give it some interest. But I really love this. I have my Edward Gorey Dracula needle minder that I made myself. I just love this. So even though I'm not going to be participating in the Dracula Confession stitch along, I can still participate with a Dracula piece, which I'm excited about. So, and this is the fabric that's on the inside. It has owls and skulls and rats. It's very cool. So that's my Dracula piece that I want to stitch on. And I don't know if I will save it for that last week so I can stitch on it on Halloween. We'll see. We'll see how the month plays out. And since I don't know what's going to happen with Village, and if I work on that or I don't work on that, I went ahead and pulled another whip that I may pull in as sort of a backup. And so this is a bag that I made with a panel that I purchased at the Paris Needlework Show, which I just love. And this Juliana Horner rose fabric that I also just love. So this is my Halloween neighborhood. And when I got this out the other day, I somehow managed to lose the needle that was in it. So I'm hoping that maybe it will turn up while I'm looking at this, because I'm really hoping that it does not turn up in someone's foot, because you know it won't be mine. Okay, so this piece is a piece that I've been working on for some time. It was originally a round robin, and then I have started adding to it so here is the whole piece. I'm just gonna kind of rotate this up. So if this looks familiar, it's because it is that block from Village of Hawkran Hollow. I just flipped the way that the tree goes and I didn't stitch the background. So this is my Halloween neighborhood that was originally a neighborhood round robin where you had people stitch houses on your round robin. It's a whole long story. I won't go into it. So I have been adding pieces to it here and there, like my witches. I added this big tree with the lamppost. I added the witch. That's from When Skeletons Dance. This is a Lizzie Kate house. I think that's the last one I added. This is a Bright Needle house, which I love, that has the witch's hat roof. That's a Just Nan piece. Village, drawn thread. This is a freebie from the Primitive Needle called By the Light of the Moon. And yeah, Prairie Schoolers, etc. So I have actually been working on charting this out because I'm sort of to that point where I need to kind of plan out where things are going to go and what's going to fit where. And so I've been charting it out, and the next piece that I want to add in is from a Chessie and Me piece that's called Hallow Wee House, and I will insert a photo here. And so that is going to go right here in this blank spot. So I'm going to put that in, and I've already got the threads pulled, so that should be easy enough. But I want, my end game is to have this super full. So houses, I'm going to put kind of a road that goes through the neighborhood, pumpkins, owls, black cats, the whole shebang. So I'm just going to try to like see how I can just fit things in so that it looks really full. and I'm really excited about it. But I thought, yeah, I will pull this out and maybe, you know, because I can probably stitch that house in the week that I would, you know, give to it. So I don't know what year this was that we did this. Anyway, probably doesn't matter. But I'm also, I'm kind of looking to see if my needle is around here someplace, and I don't see it. So anyway, I got that out so that I could potentially work on it if, you know, if I need something, because the whole village thing just doesn't pan out. But I also had to steal threads out of this because my fragrant cloves was in this. So I steal fabric or threads out of this so that I could use them for First Cock's Crow. And my needle minder, of course, is getting stuck to absolutely everything except the dang needle that's gone missing. Anyway, so that may get worked on. And it's also possible that I may throw all of these plans out the window and not do any of that. But I really want to work on Blackened Sky. For sure. So those are my Dark October stitching plans. And like I said, I may still work on the Mayflower piece, like on the weekends or something, or just one night a week. We'll see. But I do want to keep giving that a little bit of attention to keep the momentum going, because I would like to have that finished by the beginning of November. So the other piece of the Dracula's Confession stitch along is that they are going to read Bram Stoker's Dracula. Love that. I actually just recently, like last week, finished reading Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. And there's a great SAL that's going on right now that's a mystery where they're stitching a piece that's inspired by Frankenstein. I have no idea who that's by or what, but it's fantastic. So anyway, I started reading Frankenstein back in February because of the Ex Libris Spectral Collection Yarn Club. And so she was pairing yarn with books, particularly with women authors that were writing in the you know, science fiction, fantasy, horror kind of genre. So I started reading Frankenstein because I'd never read it before, and it took me from February until September to read it. Some of that was COVID related. Some of that was I just haven't had the brain function to read, which is also sort of COVID related, right? So, but what I will say is, if you have never read Frankenstein, it is well worth a read, well worth it. I was pleasantly surprised by it. It is nothing at all like what my expectation was based on, you know, popular culture and what we think of when we think of that story. It's beautifully written. It is such the epitome of that genre. you know, that Gothic, Victorian, romantic genre. Really fantastic. So I'm so glad that I read it. I wish that I had given myself the opportunity to read it in larger chunks of time rather than just little bits and pieces here and there, because I think it would have been more impactful had I allowed myself to really get into it. So that being said, if you're looking for something to read and you've not read Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, do read it. If you have not read Bram Stoker's Dracula, tomorrow's the day. So definitely get it out and read it. Dracula is another book that it is not what you would expect based on popular culture of what that story is. So it's also very well written. It is the epitome of that time period. Well worth a read. So, but seeing as how I have not so recently read Dracula, but since I have read it, since I just finished Frankenstein, I decided I'm not going to, since I'm not participating in the SAL, I'm not going to go ahead and read Dracula. This is the part of the program where it's Michelle does what she wants. So, which was sort of the theme on Monday, which is why I decided I need to just re-record. But I want to stitch on my Dracula piece that I have started. And instead of reading Dracula, which I have already read, and coming right off of Frankenstein, I wanted to start something that I have been saving. I was using this sort of as my carrot of once you finish these obligation pieces that you need to finish, the secret stitching, the secret quilting, and the secret charting, then you can start this. So instead of reading Dracula, I am going to read Midnight Sun. And I don't care what anybody says or thinks. I'm excited to read this. So this was a birthday present from Eric. Once again, he comes to the rescue, purchasing a vampire book for me, which I'm excited about. This is a big honking book, but I'm excited to read it. And I think that it will be probably a much easier read than Frankenstein was. So hopefully it won't take me 7 months to read it. But that is my plan, is to read Midnight Sun, work on my Dark October stitching, watch some creepy, scary movies, and maybe some old Vincent Price. Yeah, we'll go from there. So, I know I'm already over an hour, but it's Dark October, what can I say? So, I've been sharing some of my, bucket list pieces that I would really like to stitch, and so I thought, even though I'm doing a very scaled back version of Dark October this year, I thought maybe it would be fun to look at what would I start if I was going to just start all the things. So I pulled together a small stack of things that I thought I would share. Shall we? All right, so the first thing that was like at the top of my stack is this piece, which is a PDF called Know Thyself, and this is by Blackwood and Breyer. I showed this previously. I will insert a photo here. Of what the color version looks like. I just love this piece. It's so pretty. So pretty. So that's first up on my list. Secondly, if I was going to start all the things, is Jack's Bash by Plum Street. I love this. Love it so much. And yes, it is a printed off version, but I got the electronic from Paulette herself, so I just love it. And Emily's gonna work on that piece for October, I think, so at least I'm hoping she will. So I can't wait to see. That's another one. I haven't figured out what fabric I want to use, and yeah, so the next one is a piece by Sampler Cove called Thriller, and I just absolutely love this. Love, love, love it. And it says, moonlight casts an eerie glow, in shadows terror hides, searching for the haunted souls, on wicked wings she rides. And it's just two colors, red and black. I think it's Gloriana is what it calls for. The Raven's Roost by The Good Huswife, along with The Curse of the Raven by Carriage House. And yes, some of these are out of print. Sorry. They're still what I would start if I could. I just love these. Not Forgotten Farm, Halloween. And I have a piece of fabric that I'm going to stitch this on. I don't think I have it stuffed in here. That is this, I think it's called Busy Bee by R&R or something maybe. I just think that's fun. More tombstones. This is Prudence Wilcombe, Tombstone Angel by Carriage House. Love these. Diana, It Is Kismet Stitches, has been stitching a lot of tombstone pieces lately, which are fantastic. This is Carolina Handley, which is another one by Carriage House. I think Judy Cash was working on this one at one point. This one was in a magazine. My guess is it was just cross stitch. I just have the copy here. But this is another Carriage House Tombstone Angel, and Olivia B just recently finished this one, and it's fantastic. Just love it. The Talking Board by Primitive Needle. I had started this originally and I hated the fabric I had started it on, so I ripped that out and I'm gonna start it on something else. And there are a ton of Ouija board samplers. I just like this one since it was sort of the first one that I saw. But there are several of them. Blackwood and Briar, in fact, has a great one that I would really also like to stitch. This is sort of the liaison between Sampler September and Dark October. This is a sampler by Primitive Needle called Mary Doige. And the reason that this is sort of a transition piece is because this was stitched on October the 31st, 1844. Mary Doige, 8 years. I love this. And I think Rose Heck is actually just recently started this, which got me thinking about it. Love it. So pretty. Primitive needle tombstone spots. You may be sensing a theme. Tombstone spots. Amy Baruch stitched this and did a fantastic FFO of it. This is one of my favorite pieces, and it's the piece that I have picked out to start as soon as I finish Blacked Sky. I'm going to start this one. I love it. Lisa had such a love for tombstones, and she and her daughter used to go to some of the old cemeteries and do rubbings of the different tombstone motifs, and so this one is just perfect. I love it. It's stitched on 40 count Heritage by Picture This Plus with Weeks Dye Works threads. Love it. This is another primitive needle. Follow Me. Another one for my tombstone wall. Primitive needle Crescent Angel. I love this. Really pretty. This one is not, this is the last one. This one is not technically Halloween, but it has that kind of vibe to me. So this is old game board. And it's a lot of solid stitching, but I just really love it. So those are my, if I was going to go on a startathon, these are what I would start. So anyway, so I think that is everything that I had to share with you. I hope that you enjoyed this little traipse through Dark October planning, and I hope to see you joining Emily and I for Dark October stitching. Definitely let me know what you've got on your plate for October and what you're planning on starting or working on. So thanks so much for joining. I really appreciate it. I, of course, appreciate all of the comments and likes and all that good stuff, subscribes, etc. I will, of course, put all of the information in the show notes, which will be on my blog. There will be a link to that down below in the description box. And I look forward to it. I will be back probably in a couple of weeks to share, you know, what I've been working on and how my Dark October is going, and if I've made any decision about Village of Hawk Run Hollow. So, yeah, thanks so much, guys. Happy haunting. Bye.